Good afternoon and welcome to the December 9th Health and Safety meeting, which is actually the last meeting of the year, 2024. Can you believe 2024 has gone by so fast? I can't. I'm another year older. Actually, another year wiser. So we are going to start our meeting today, and I'm going to actually start to my right, just with the board member, and then we're going to end back around. So we're going to introduce board members first and the administration that we have at the table, and then we're going to jump right into our wonderful agenda.
All right, hello, Board Member Kendra Mapp.
Dr. Kareem Moffitt.
Board Member Mary Weinberg.
Chief Operating Officer Chris Burkhardt.
Dr. Smith, Deputy Superintendent.
Shauna Murphy, Superintendent.
William Bell, Director of Safety.
Manisha House, Director of Positive School Culture.
You guys look good sitting up here. You can swap seats with me anytime during a board meeting. You guys look great. So first on our agenda is about the Hamilton County Addiction. Oh, and then wait, hold on. I'm sorry. We have two people in the audience. Our board admin, Ms. Phyllis Davis, who is our backbone, and then Mr. Rob Wilson, who is our technical guru. I was going to say that. And Rob can give some instructions on if you would like to speak during hearing of the public.
If you'd like to speak during the hearing of the public, please click the hand icon. We will ask your name and association to the district, and then we will invite you to chat during the end of the meeting on the topic of your choice for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. The first item, Hamilton County Addiction Response, I'm just going to give a very brief update on that. And I'm going to invite our Deputy Superintendent to speak a little bit about that as well. We met with the chairs of the Hamilton County Addiction Response Committee, which the board holds a representative seat with the county. And they talked about a grant that is going to be available to the public, but would benefit our schools. So Dr. Smith may have been in contact. I'm sorry, I kind of threw you under the bus there. I didn't mean to. Do you have any updates, anything that you want to say about maybe what we shared about the grant proposal?
I don't have any updates. They haven't, they were supposed to request to meet with me once they kind of composed the conversation that you and I had with them. But it is really an opportunity for us to really look at how our young people are interfacing with trauma and drugs and how we can support them at school and what that would look like. The grant gives us opportunity to talk about programming, looking at what we already have in our building and how we can build on and elaborate on that. So they're being very careful about who they partner with. So we met with them, shared kind of where we were. We definitely would like to partner with them on this. They were going to have a community meeting and come back to us, kind of share what they thought, what their thoughts were, and then we were going to come together. That has not happened. I have not received anything since we met with them. I think it's a very intense process, and they just really want to make sure they're partnering with the right people to get the right data. They're going to ask us to do a survey to see where our kids are with the different ways that they are using different drugs and how they are dealing with trauma in school.
Thank you. And just to back up, I'm sorry, I volleyed to you and I didn't set it up correctly. So Hamilton County, the Addiction Response Committee has a grant through I think the government and maybe the state of multi-millions of dollars that they are going to be offering to the public to bid on under an RFP process. And some of that money deals with prevention. And they would like to have some programming of providers regarding prevention in the schools. So they reached out to CPS to say, hey, what are some of the best practices that you all need for us to require of the grantees that are, some of them are in the building, some of them are not in the building, and how can we measure that? So Dr. Smith offered some things that we currently do with regard to the curriculum for health and like prevention. And so they were gonna get back in touch with us. So that's what that was about. Again, I didn't set that up. I wasn't in the right headspace, so I didn't know if they had reached out to you.
I appreciate you doing that. I was thinking like, what's the name of that grant? We just met with them a few weeks ago, and it's going to be exciting though, because as I was sharing with them, we definitely need some more support around health and how we are. It used to be we had a health teacher at every school, and that's not a space where we're in anymore. And so the curriculum, just all of those pieces that will really help our teachers and our young people. I can remember at school, we learned early on about smoking cigarettes and all different types of things that impact your health and your body. And so the kids take health, but it's usually for like 1 quarter maybe, and then gym. So I think I'm excited about once they reach back, how we can connect our curriculum and all that work together to help our young people. Because I think they have a lot of wrong information, because a lot of times they're getting their information off of our great old internet and social media and what people have shared with them, but giving them facts about how these things will impact their bodies over the years.
Yeah, that's for sure. Does anyone have any questions about that? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Mel?
Yes, so the only question I have in terms of the curriculum, is this intended for our high school students, or like what is the grade, what are the grades that maybe this programming would be intended for?
I believe, Board Member Mapp, they're open. Like, they're open to looking at prevention, what it would look like as a conversation for young people, and then all the way up and more details. I don't think they're limited to that, but our minds went straight to how can we supplement what we don't have in that grant that would support our young people that are the most vulnerable. But I think once they come back and send me an invite to have the conversation, I'm going to invite Ms. House to that conversation and some of the social workers, so we can talk about what does that look like, right? But I think they're open to just prevention, period, right? And what does that look like, and how do you have those conversations with the younger kids? Because what we're seeing last year, that we had gummies at school that were all the way down to like 3rd grade, where kids were using those gummies at school, and we had to, send kids home for that. So I think at least getting down to 3rd grade and having that conversation with those kids through 12th grade.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question, so in terms of this grant, is this something that we would partner with Hamilton County on, so they would also be a part of that grant application process as well? Or we have to apply separately?
Yes. Now,
So we're not the recipients of the grant. They have this money, and they are passing it out through an RFP process to organizations.
Okay,
And then those organizations are already, some of them are already in our schools, and some of them are applying to be in our schools. I'm not exactly sure if that would be through the resource coordination. That part wasn't very clear, but they would like to know what is it that we as a district would want to require those awardees if they get it. So we don't have to apply for anything. It's just kind of people that are benefiting from the grant, from the county and the federal dollars. You're welcome. So, and they do a survey every 2 or 3 years. They survey, obviously, Hamilton County, but they did not get, I think when they ran the survey a few years ago, they weren't able to get entrance into CPS, probably like 3 years ago. And so they didn't have a lot of CPS input. And it's talking about vaping, it's talking about access to all types of awareness and access to all kinds of drugs. So because prevention first is, and we've had them come and present to us here, they are also involved in this as well. They're wanting to look forward to getting some of our students involved in the survey, which we're welcoming that, and that we can get their voices too. So I'm looking forward to that next year, getting some more data. Thank you. So next, I wish we could get the money. We need the money. We wish we could get it. So we'll definitely be lobbying for that one. Send us a couple million.
I did
out
have a
of here.
question about the time period. When do they plan on starting? Because this is really exciting when we look at our data and we look at what are those exclusionary consequences that students are going to the Promise Center for. And there's a large number going for vaping, and really providing some proactive supports for students is so needed. So I'm just curious, is this something that we're just having conversations about now and planning, and do they anticipate the grant starting in the fall, or do you know?
So they talked about opening up the bidding in January. I think January, I know the first of the year, I'm going to say January. I'm assuming with our input, some of them would be getting awarded late winter, January, February, maybe, and then early spring. So I don't know what that part of the timeline is, and definitely we'll share when we get it. But I do know they wanted the input on what qualifications we should be asking for the grantees to get awarded. And I think, I deferred that to the superintendent, who said, hey, this is Dr. Smith, and so Dr. Smith said, hey, this is Dr. House. So it was kind of like, we need to pull all of you in so that you're able to make that informed on who is in the, what programs are in the building, and then what they're asking for. Now, the survey piece is already done. They've done it before. They just do it every 2 or 3 years. And so they just are wanting to get data from our students around vaping, around awareness issues, drugs prevention. And they would like to pass that out. I think it's next year or maybe the year after, but they have programming too. We're gonna pull you in on all of that. I'll pass that information on. Any other questions? All right, we are cooking with grease. Pedestrian safety, Mr. Burkhart, I think it's on you. I hate to keep bringing you back, but you are just the man with the plan regarding pedestrian safety.
Well, thank you so much. I want to start with some housekeeping from the last meeting. The question was asked by our board members why we didn't previously have school flashers at the 20-mile-an-hour flashing signs at our high schools. So I do have the answer to report back. In discussion with John Brzezina with the city, he said the previous policy was to follow the ORC, which is, for those of you who are viewing at home, it's ORC 4511.21, which does not require school zone flashers for high schools, grades 9 through 12. But due to the emphasis on pedestrian safety, the Department of Transportation and Engineering has decided that that was going to be part of their policy moving forward. So they're going to start installing those flashers at all the high schools. So they're going to do a couple every year so that we get that at all of our high schools. So thank you to John, his team, and the city for recognizing that and moving forward with that. So again, happy to close that loop on the question from last meeting. Also want to talk briefly about crossing guards, a topic near and dear to my heart. So as of the first meeting, I think I reported we have roughly 69 open crossing guards, and just recently we've are in the process of hiring 15 additional crossing guards. Last week on Tuesday, I did a interview with one of the local news stations, and that day we had 21 folks who had called inquiring about crossing guards just in a 24-hour period. So we're really, really hopeful that we are really moving the needle. So obviously that was just last Tuesday that I did the interview. On Wednesday, we've got those names. So we are following up with them and really moving forward. So if I can do another interview or two, we can get through it. So the other thing that I'm really excited about, and Dr. Smith is going to help me here with being Vanna White here, we have our new signs hot off the press. So crossing guards needed here signs. These are actually going to be yard signs that we're going to put at the actual intersections where we need crossing guards. So we're asking folks to either scan the QR code, go to our website, and or call, because we need crossing guards at those locations. We're really, really excited about getting those rolled out, literally hot off the press on Friday. And we're going to be putting those up this week. Yes.
Can you explain, for anyone who's listening or that will kind of come back and watch this video, how long would the process take once they apply? Because I know that was a question that I received.
Yeah, so we actually, once they apply, the second that we get to their application online, Shauna McDowell, who's our crossing guard guru, is actually scheduling interviews the next day. So she's starting that process literally the day after she gets the application, and then she'll go through the normal process. So we're looking at about a 2-week process from start to finish to get the background check. They have to obviously drug screening and go through the interview process and application process. We've got to validate, we've got to get the background check done, and then we'll get them in place. So I know this is the holiday season. Not everyone is able to meet really fast timelines during the holiday season, so we're extending some grace on everyone's side, but we really want to get these positions filled and filled quickly. So that's a crossing guard update. Yes.
This is great news. You are making some great headway. We were throwing a curveball a little bit earlier, but you all definitely fixed it, so thank you. And we need you all to apply, so we need to put that sign like prominently between us or something. Yeah, we can, Vice President Weinberg can hold it around too, do a little flashing Vanna White thing going on. So for sure, thank you. Please do
Yes.
apply.
And,
We were literally
and the
gonna
other
put this-
question that came up was in relation to training. I did actually have a very short conversation with Chief of Police today, and we're trying to get a meeting scheduled next week so that we can talk about a joint ownership of training for our new crossing guards. And we hope that that's going to happen again next week so that we can move forward. Can we not see the wonderful? Okay.
We can't see the apply today. All this education up here, we cannot figure out how to.
Yes.
Put the
Hopefully those
sign up
folks who
there.
are watching online can actually
We can put it in the front.
see the QR code and be able to scan the QR code.
Thanks, Mr. Bell. We need some help. Can they see that at the bottom? Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Not to monopolize the time for the meeting, but we do have every week, or every other week, we have a joint meeting with Department of Transportation Engineering, as well as a joint meeting with Department of Engineering and Transportation, as well as Metro. So every other week, those two groups meet, and we discuss safe routes to schools and pedestrian safety. Happy to follow up on the Walnut question that was asked, I believe, 2 meetings ago. We've met out at Walnut, I believe, 3 times now, looking at the larger picture. We can solve some of the safety issues quickly, but we want to make sure that we have something sustainable. One of the things that we've done in the interim is changing where the Metro stop is. So the Metro stop is a little bit further up on Gilbert, which provides better sight lines for folks turning into and out of Walnut, which will help us. The city is actually doing a study for that whole area. So the whole area that would include Gilbert, Salzar, all the way down to Victory Parkway, that entire area. We're looking at what we can do in that entire area to make that more safe for that high-traffic area. We're also looking at putting no turn left out of Walnut onto Gilbert because there are no sight lines there as well. So we're looking at over the holiday break, making that implemented. So after the first of the year, that becomes another safety precaution that we've put into place. We're actively talking about crosswalks at SCPA, at John P. Parker, bus stops at Withrow. So we've got a whole bunch of discussions that are happening on a weekly basis with these folks. And I want to say publicly, it's been wonderful collaborating with those two entities. I know that it's hard once you get a lot of large organizations together to move the needle quickly, but I can honestly say that both the folks at Metro and at the city have been wonderful to work with, and we really are moving the needle on making sure that we hear about the issues, we all meet at those locations, we put eyes on it, and we come forward with plans. So happy with those. The final, I'm sorry, I can stop for a question?
You want to do questions now, or do you want to do them later?
I can do it now.
Okay.
It's not really a question. I was just going to say thank you as the former chair. I know that we brought this topic up several times, and just with the safety of our children, whether they're getting off of the bus, whether they're walking to school, whether we heard from parents regarding drop-off and just being afraid that their child would be hit, et cetera. So I just want to thank you for all of your work in terms of really pushing this forward and continuing to ensure the safety of our children. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I definitely want to echo the sentiments. Thank you for your hard work, for ensuring our safety of our students and our families overall, because they are at those sites as well. But I also wanted to go back to the crossing guard. I had a question around that. So is employment only for the months that the students are in school for the crossing guards, or what does that look like? Okay.
Yeah, so we're looking at, and those, I'm going to get a little deep in the weeds, we have 171 days, I believe, that students are actually in session. So it would be all those days that students are in session that those employees would work. And that's a 3-hour shift per day, both in the early morning and afternoon. And thank you for bringing that up, because I forgot one thing, that we do have about 20 schools that we have openings at, but those schools are covered partially. And when I say about covered partially, we still have openings there, but we have someone who's covering that shift partially, whether it's morning or afternoon, or maybe someone can only work Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, but not Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we do have coverage there, but it's not the coverage that we want to have. So I don't want to mislead everyone to say we have no one at some of these stops or at these crosswalks. We do have folks there. They may not be there every single day or both morning and afternoon. So thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely. And then the second part to that is, so each year, anyone interested in serving as a crossing guard, they will reapply at the start of the year, or?
Well, they can apply anytime they want, anytime
Oh,
during the
okay.
course of the year. We're happy to take the applications. As we start to fill these, it's going to be a little bit more tricky, that if someone is on one side of town versus the opening at the other side of town, how we reconcile those. I know folks typically want to work close to where they live, which is why these yard signs are great, because we're putting these yard signs in the intersection so that folks who are driving by or walking by or biking by can see them and say, wait a second, that's something I want to do. And really, we're really happy with just the outpouring of support, both by folks applying and folks calling into the district saying, we're happy that you're addressing this. So thank you for everyone who's been part of that.
Yeah, thank you.
It'll turn on your mic. That's okay.
And I'm pretty sure this has been covered before, but can you just share for people watching the age requirement for crossing guard?
I believe it's 16, or is it 18?
It's 18.
18, that's what I was
So
wondering,
anybody
yes.
18
Yeah,
can apply to be a crossing guard, so I just.
thank you.
So that was actually going to be one of my questions, because someone, an older person, a little elder wisdom, asked me, could students be crossing guards at their schools? I thought there was not Superintendent Murphy's giving me the nod, I thought there was not a minimum, like a 18-year-old
That's
requirement.
what the deputy and I were just discussing. I do think that we had this conversation with authority in the past, that they could be younger than 18.
Yeah, I thought they could.
So maybe we'll look a little bit further just to double check. Not that that's very popular, that's happening, but I do believe it's possible they could be a little younger.
I think so, and we're going to probably bring you back again, Mr. Burkhart, to clarify, but
We'll
I
find out.
do think that there was some interest somewhere of having students, workers, or students that get to school or live in that neighborhood early and want to, and then maybe we just develop a policy or something around that, but if that's a possibility, maybe we can get the word out to some of our students.
Yeah, I thought the younger age, they were talking about the kids volunteering, but I may be wrong. It may be younger. I thought it was 18, but when Superintendent Murphy said it, I was like, yeah, I think we did talk about 16.
I thought
But
we
I
said,
thought it was something with volunteering or something.
I thought we said community
did.
service hours for like the 14,
community service
15s,
hours. Yeah.
but the
That's what-
16s,
that's
they
what
had to
made
get
me
paid
think
or something.
18 was the higher, but I thought we said we could use younger ones, but I may be off.
Well, we're gonna bring this
We'll
back
find out.
again.
I'm happy to come back to the next
We're gonna have to
meeting.
come back to the next meeting in next
Find
month
out.
and give us an update.
My
That's okay.
apologies, Chris.
You're
That's
good.
okay.
You're
It was
good.
coming. You know, I have it on my list, student workers. And the other thing I wanted to ask about was Clark, a Clark parent. I connected them with the city during our joint meeting, but they were talking about their crosswalk. And then Schroeder Middle School was also talking about their crosswalk. So I just wanted to make sure that I put that on your radar. I think that you all are probably working with them already, but just to highlight it.
Yeah, we've worked with Clark a number of times. We've had at least 3 meetings out at Clark. And really, the issue with Clark is the sight lines, where the Metro buses and the yellow buses park. The yellow buses to the right of the driveway off of Clark, if you're looking at the street, the Metro on the left side, moving that crosswalk provides less sight distance, and folks would be walking out into traffic without being able to see around those buses in either direction. So it's one of those situations where there is no right answer, and so we will continue to look at it. This actually came up on my radar last June, and we've had at least 4 discussions about it. I believe we were at Boots on the Ground at least 3 times. So it will continue to be a discussion, as well as Schroeder Middle School. So that's on our radar as well. We've had discussions on that. We just haven't finalized where the Metro stop is going to land finally, as well as where the crosswalks are going to be in relation to that Metro stop.
Okay. I think someone else today told me about Rising Stars Vine, about how they almost had an accident there today going down the hill, something about could we put a sign up that says slow down, or there is a left turn into the parking lot? I don't know, but that's another one just to put on your radar. So, but this is great. Thank you so much for,
Yeah.
we are.
One last item that is
Okay.
tangentially pedestrian safety is the round 4 of electric school buses is coming up. And so if you remember, we have won 3 rounds of the electric school buses. So we, at some point, will have 30 electric school buses, 10 at a time, coming to our district over the next 3 years, starting in fiscal year '27. We hope to apply for round 4, and we hope that we will win round 4. So that will be hopefully 40 electric school buses coming to the district if we're lucky enough. Our odds are pretty good because we've won 3 rounds so far, so my fingers are crossed for round 4.
Fingers crossed too. Yes, ma'am. Board Member Wine.
Do we have the actual buses already, or they're in the process of coming for the next year, or when do we expect them?
So the buses right now are currently being made,
Okay.
and we will not expect them for at least another 15 or 16 months.
Okay.
So, but we are hopeful, and we are ready for them to be here.
And the sizing and everything would be the same as a regular school bus, it's just that they're electric?
Correct. Yes.
That's awesome. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just clarity, did you say 30 or 40?
Right now, we have 30. We will be applying for 10 more. So hopefully that will be 40. So there's already been 3 rounds. Each round, we've received 10 buses. So we have 30 coming, and then those will be staggered. Obviously, we'll get 10 in 1 year, 10 in another year, 10 in another year. And so we're hoping that round four is as lucky as round 1, 2, and 3.
We're going to put that in the atmosphere for that to be there. Now, if we need to get any letter writing or campaigns going on, let us know. We'll get the public out here. Electric buses, electric buses. So thanks, Mr. Burkhart. Appreciate that. Next on the agenda is Dr. House around student conduct and discipline data.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for allowing our department to present updates. And so I know that I have the next 2 agenda items, so they are kind of back-to-back on the presentation slide deck, but we'll definitely take a pause in between for questions.
Ms.
So,
House, could you
yes.
move your mic a little closer? So, thank you.
Can you hear now? Oh, okay. Sing a little song to introduce. So just to review, always kind of like to review our department and all of the things that it encompasses, just really our goals to increase student attendance, relationship and belonging, classroom instructional time, the internal capacity of our staff, and we always want to continue to reduce and even eliminate chronic absenteeism and exclusionary discipline. Those are those things that keep students out of the classrooms and learning. And so we do this with collaborative efforts of culturally responsive PBIS plans, teams, and work with our community, strong bullying prevention program, attendance and truancy prevention, social emotional learning, and restorative practice. So all of these things comprehensively are needed to meet our goals. So there was a article that was presented. I don't know if board members have been shared with this article, but it just came out. Liz Igoat with the Hamilton County Courts submitted this article, and it really illuminated the voice of our students that are in our juvenile justice system, really asking them about violence in our community and what impacts them, and even what impacts them in learning, or what has impacted them. And so it kind of reminded us that student voice is important, and really looking for those opportunities. So as we look at our data, Guardrail 2, we know that that was presented to you already, and that there was significant decrease. And so there's a couple of things that we are looking at. Overall, the data does tell us the story that there's a decrease. What we are seeing is that because we have transitioned to focus our student information platform, that due to the newness and just the transition, there probably is a decrease of staff usage. We do see that the referrals that are submitted are mostly like those big things that are getting students suspended, or those big opportunities that teachers are taking to actually write those things. And so we do believe that that's why there is this significant drop. So we'll continue to monitor that and definitely update about Q2 as soon as that ends on where we are in comparison from Q1 to Q2, so we can see if that data holds true of holding that continuous drop, not only in just Category 2 infractions, but also in our disproportionality. You can hit the next slide. So what was important for our team is to really take a deep dive and look into those areas we know that we need to improve. So historically, and it even holds true today, even across the state, but within our own district, we know that ninth grade is an area to improve. Ninth grade has some of the highest referral rates and the highest suspensions and exclusionary consequences for Category 2 and 3. So we wanted to take an opportunity to look into ninth grade. So we did a snapshot in Q1, and out of 562 offenses, they were among 396 students. So what did that mean, breaking that down? If we really need to target ninth grade because we want to increase not only their chronic absenteeism, but we want to decrease students being suspended or expelled, we realized, looking further into the data, there were 11 students that had 3 offenses or more this year, and the top offenses were profanity, fighting, and disorderly conduct. And these are primarily the top offenses for all of the ninth graders. So that's an area to really target and to look at. So if you look at the next slide, it shows a wonderful Pareto chart. Thank you, Children's Hospital, to be able to kind of see where are we with our categories in our areas. So if you look and you see disorderly conduct being the highest, fighting, and then profanity. So those are kind of the top 3 areas, not only for those students that had 3 or more offenses, but just for in general for all students in the ninth grade. So one of the things that we look at that's really important for us regarding information, where do these things occur? Is it all after school? Is it in a particular area of the building? And so for those students that we would call like our frequent flyers that had 3 or more, or for just all students that were the ninth graders that had referrals, the majority of those referrals took place or were initiated in the classroom. That gives us information to allow us to create plans and supports for teachers as they're trying to have proactive strategies that can hopefully reduce these situations from occurring. So one of the things that we want to continue to do is to promote with our school teams, our PBIS teams, and our principal leadership teams to continue to use the PBIS professional development staff calendar that we have given them. Each month, it provides strategies that teachers can use in the classroom to impact their classroom PBIS structures. For example, active supervision, giving the students free feedback, just some typical things when you talk about expectations, even giving acknowledgement. Sometimes we don't look for teachers to give a bunch of candy out or things that are outside of their realm or scope, to be able to incentivize everything. But sometimes acknowledging with students that they're making the right choice or that they're having an impact can go a long way. So that's one of the things that we're going to continue to focus on as a department and work with our teams to help increase and have an impact on classroom strategies to hopefully reduce these infractions and what we see in our data. Any questions?
Well, I was going to say, you pretty much answered my question, because I was going to inquire about what the classroom management entailed. And if we were seeing a lot of these infractions occur, I guess what is the discipline plan that maybe teachers, I remember when I was a teacher, we had a discipline plan when, so first you get a warning, and of course I was in elementary, but there was a tiered approach to addressing discipline. So I'm curious to know if we have that within our district, or, but it sounds like there's a need to improve and strengthen that based off of the PBIS strategies that you're talking about.
Yes, there's definitely a need and a requested need as well. There are many teachers that are reaching out, and even principals that are reaching out for support for our teachers. Inconsistency really kills the structure of the building. And so you could have a tight team of teachers, and if one teacher is not as strong, things can start there and then kind of blow up outside into the other classrooms and into the hallways. And so we want to equip all of our teachers, regardless of grade level, so that they can have strong structures in place to be able to help support them. And what I really like about PBIS, it gives you proactive strategies, not just reactive strategies and waiting for an incident to happen, but there are structural things that we as adults can do to help eliminate some of these behaviors.
Thank you for that. And the other question that comes to mind is around, are we seeing where a lot of the expectation is being held on the administration to address the discipline? So the assistant principal or the principal, who's addressing those issues most frequently?
It really should be a team effort. It's a team effort between the classroom teachers. It's a team effort between all staff, whether they're paraprofessionals, security, nutritional services. Everyone needs to be a part of supporting the discipline of a student, because it's not just about punishment. It's about redirecting, it's about giving clear expectations, and it's also about teaching. Sometimes we forget that students are still children and they're still learning, and we still have to remind and practice and teach those expectations. I'm sure as parents can think about what they do with their own children. I'm sure you've told your children, if you tell them to please take your shoes off when you get into the house, I'm sure you just don't have to say it once. You have to keep reminding them, whether they're 5, 12, 15, or 22, this is an expectation. And so we just really need to continue to encourage our staff members. A lot of times, I think there is a frustration that comes about that teachers might feel like this is beyond what I can do, or my consequences are not strong enough because they're not having an impact. So I need administration to do. And administration might think, heck, I'm overwhelmed with some of these bigger things. I don't have a chance to really kind of get into the nitty gritty with the student who just doesn't have the correct pencil pouch. I mean, just to kind of give, there's a lot that's going on, and I think depending on one person is not a good system. It needs to be systemic, and you need support from everyone to make it happen. So I think that that is an area to improve. And also consistency with understanding our code of conduct. We realize that there's an opportunity, so hopefully at the start of the year, to be able to work with our communications department to do a push out of this is what our code of conduct is staff, this is what our code of conduct is students, just so that they're aware and have the same language and be able to provide some training and understanding around that, as well as some alignment with our principals. We do see that some will suspend for maybe in-school suspension for one infraction, but at the next school, the same infraction is 10 days recommended for expulsion. So really just working on with alignment as a district as well.
Thank you for highlighting the challenges, but also recognizing areas of, potential improvement and strength. And I really like that you called out that alignment piece and ensuring that everyone is working collaboratively, because the reality is it's all of our students, so we all play a part in ensuring their academic success and their overall wellness. So thank you for that.
Go ahead, yes, ma'am.
Vice President Weinberg.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. And as you talk on that consistency piece, I know that has always been a concern for me, especially coming out of the classroom and then also being able to talk to various students and just saying, well, I did this and this is what I got versus another student did this and, they got something a little bit easier. So I think that that's very huge and big, and having an understanding, and then also the restorative justice piece too, in terms of incorporating that. I do have a question in terms of our discipline, the data that you shared. Can you go back? I think it was to the part where it says we're on track. I think it was one of the very first slides. Or actually, go back again. One more. So with the 562 offenses among the 396 students, in terms of in the past, how has that gone down? Or I'm assuming it's gone down because it's less. Do we know that number from before?
So I don't know the exact number to compare to give you, quote, it has reduced, but it's very comparable to what we see as far as relationship to student enrollment, if that makes sense. Student enrollment and where we are with where are the highest referral areas, it's still kind of ninth grade, even though it is reduced.
Okay, thanks.
So thank you for this. I'm always really interested in discipline data and the disparity there, because being very, very transparent, I had 3 children and one of them kept me busy with the discipline data. So I'm very interested in that with regard to boys. But I also want to understand in the trilogy, where's the parent involvement? And so that piece has always a little mystified me, because we talk about restorative justice and practices, but we don't really, I think, do enough engagement around bringing the parents in so that they can help enforce what is going on or explain what's going on with regard to the discipline of our students. A lot of times I'm wondering, have we thought about being in the true sense of the word wrap around? Have we thought about, okay, the student had the profanity, fighting, or disorderly conduct offense that was caused by something, but yet we're reporting it and we see the 562 offenses, and that's where it's subjective to me. It can be subjective, because one thing that offends me might not offend another teacher. But maybe there are reasons why. Have we looked at the student off the paper to say, oh, maybe the student can't read, or oh, maybe the student had a fire in their home? Let's bring the parent in to wrap them around with either services or just consistency in the consequence. Have we done any of that, or has it been successful? Are we looking at connectivity around services offered in that building, effectiveness of those services, parental input, or even justice center input? Like, are they involved in being adjudicated by the system, and maybe that's some of the trigger? Additionally, those are the external things that impact that student, but are we also looking at how the teacher said it? You know, sometimes kids always talk about, it was disrespectful to me. Well, I can tell you the same thing and you may not have been disrespected. So where is the training of, and I'm pretty sure you're probably doing it, but where is the connectivity to really change that behavior from a multi-pronged approach rather than to just kind of throw it at? And then are we looking at it as a trend? So this student, you know, Brian had problems in the 4th grade with this teacher. Okay, now they're having the same problem in the 5th grade with another teacher. Now they're having the problem. Are we looking at the data off the paper too?
I'm so glad you asked that question. So I'm hoping I can answer every point that you made. So yes, we are, and school teams are as well. Each month, PBIS teams should be going through their data and having these honest conversations about where they see areas of need, where they see a response to their intervention, you know, having these ongoing dialogues about, hey, we still have an issue with this. What professional development do we need? And we're at that point in the school year where schools have already identified those and have already kind of reached out for what supports are needed. One thing in my department, as soon as we saw this data, we're like, it's too good to be true. We've got to do some more digging. So some of the things that we're doing is what we call an N of 1. We are looking up those students that have historically had high discipline numbers that don't have any this year, that are still enrolled with us, so we can figure out what is the story behind this kid. What happened, what strategies were put in place, what made the difference, what's going on. Because if we can replicate that, that's what's gonna help reduce those things. So we are doing that. We continuously have huddles every week with social workers, so that we can talk about what strategies are working in the SEL connection and components to really have some alignment with our discipline data, but then also with attendance data and also with just the work that they're doing in general to kind of align some resources and to ensure that they have a voice at the table with PBIS as well, so that they can have a level of influence with their expertise and need. So I would say yes. To the parent point of view, that is a growth opportunity. I do think that it would be a great opportunity for us to empower our staff and especially our teachers on how to have these conversations with parents. A lot of times it becomes difficult conversations, and sometimes, as my mother told me this week, something that's difficult or bad news doesn't get better over time. So it's good to have this conversation early up front, but how to do it in a way that's collaborative, non-assuming and restorative, and meeting the parent where they are and just kind of understanding to come up with a plan. So that's always, I think that is an opportunity to help to support our staff, because sometimes just our approach and how we can communicate can be off-putting or become very personal to the parent, and so it's hard to get them on board in a very difficult situation. It's hard to hear that your child is struggling. It's hard to hear that they're suspended from school or that they're not functioning appropriately or they're not excelling in an academic setting that's expected of all kids. It's very hard, and I think sometimes in the profession on the other side of the table, it's difficult for us. We just want them to fix it. You know, so I think really empowering teachers for how to have those conversations and even how administration can help support teachers, especially in those really difficult situations.
Well,
I'd
thank you
like
for-
to add, Dr. Moffitt.
Yes, ma'am.
This is always a really tough one because it is hard to have those conversations, but I think as we're moving this work with discipline and safety, we're going to really talk about that piece of, I know in the elementary schools we did a lot of this. When we had children that struggled the year before, we usually start the year off with a parent meeting, right? Like we really don't want what happened last year to happen this year. Let's talk about what we can do. Do we need a behavior plan? Is there some support we can provide for the family? And I think looking at it from the lens of the high school as well, that we can start the year off with some of these conversations with parents. Because sometimes what happens, the parents that we need to see, we cannot get. and we can't leave the kids at home or at the Promise Center more than you want to have a conversation, and you feel like you're always putting the same child out, and you're like, I just need to talk to somebody and maybe help out. But I think if we put something in place to say, okay, Alicia Smith last year was out 25 days. Let's identify who those kids are as the year goes on and talk about how we can be proactive. I think that's a layer that we can put in to be proactive, so that we can support our young people up front. Because when you're in the middle of it as a principal, you're like, wait a minute. Kareem, again, come on, Kareem.
Yeah.
Now, we done had that conversation a couple times, so I think being proactive and talking about that with PBIS and saying one of our steps needs to be, let's look at our students that have had those problems this year, the year before, or even right now as we get ready to reset in January. Let's look at our students that have been suspended. Have we talked with a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, somebody that we can say, hey, how do we support him or her this year? I think that's another step that we can add that would get us to that parent involvement, because I think we'll get more than not.
I think so.
Yeah.
I do too. Thank you.
One thing I can add, the structure of who all gets to sit within my department has been amazing. At first, when I looked at it on paper, I was like, whoo, I'm gonna be busy this year. But it has been great for me to be able to navigate these conversations between Promise Center and having conversations with students about, really tell me why you're here. Having that conversation, being able to go back to the school level, but then also the same day going to 2020 at Auburn to have conversations with those students and staff about, tell me about your story. How can we help you? How can I support you so that this is not reoccurring as well? What are those things that you need? What would make you successful? So really just that leadership structure has really made a difference too in connecting some of the resources and the staff as well that work within the departments.
Thank you. I think under the true traditional CPS fashion, it's like we're innovative. This sounds like a white paper coming, so for sure, let's continue to keep going. But thank you. I have tons more questions and suggestions, but we only have a little bit of time, so we'll take it offline. Mental health, this is you.
All right, and some of the things that we talked about will be kind of highlighted or included in the mental health piece as well. So just starting off with mental health, wanted to give you a Gaggle update for November. Remember, Gaggle is our way to monitor. We monitor through Google when students use their Google accounts, cue content or that questionable content. I like to call that just the inappropriate things that students might type or communicate, whether they're using a Google Doc or whether they're using a calendar invite or a file or an email that they send. So those are things that are addressed at the school, but what we also really look at and pay attention to and monitor 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days of the week, including weekends, evenings, and holidays, are the possible student situation. That is whether a student communicates self-harm or harming others. We really want to intervene soon. We don't wait till the next day. During school hours, the school team addresses that. During the evening hours, there is a team collected of social workers, counselors, myself and members of the Positive School Culture team, even members of our ITM team that will jump in to be able to address. So for the month of November, we had 5 possible student situation alerts that needed to be addressed, and 2 that were after hours, for just a total of 7 for the entire district, which is a decrease from the month before. So the next slide. There was a request from one of the board members just about positive school culture and how does everything fit in regarding restorative practices and the work of equity and social emotional learning and trauma-informed care, and how it just all flows together. It's not one is greater than the other, but they all help us to support the best learning environment and supportive and engaging environment for all students. And so this is why our drive is to help promote all of these professional development opportunities, providing feedback, coaching and resources in these areas. And we really appreciate the board's support of this continued work. Next slide. In November, we reignited the PBIS community team, and so we're really excited to have this meeting. We'll have it once a semester, and so we appreciate our community partners that came out, our parents that came out, social workers and CPS staff that came out to really be able to support this endeavor. But it allowed us to engage with one another for a few hours to talk about an aligned purpose, talk about how we can support one another in this effort with PBIS, and what we really want our outcomes to be, so that we're just in alignment in lockstep and that our vision is together. So on the next slide, we kind of came up with things that we can do to be in greater alignment, and then we challenged each other afterwards of like, what are our next steps going to be, because we all have a responsibility to be able to help support our students. So the next slide even gave kind of examples. Sometimes you just need to break it down. What does it look like? Because you're all using a bunch of just different language. Pretty much, you know, the positive reinforcement, like thank you so much for being safe, stating expectations, please keep your hands to yourself. Really thinking about a prompt pre-correction. Just remember, students, you know, there's a way that you can go about doing things. So when you talked about how do we help support staff in the classroom with the PBIS structure, it's really kind of reinforcing these items so that teachers can get in the habit and practice of doing these things, as opposed to stop doing that, sit down. If I have to say it one more time, you're getting rid of. You know, just providing them with some strategies to help support them. So one of the things that we realize is that we do not have a board-adopted curriculum for SEL, nor do we have really consistent curriculum resources, especially for our high school. And so we are going through the process of the same kind of alignment process that curriculum goes through with the curriculum adoption. And so we know that this will be in alignment with the strategic plan, and this will help increase adult support, and it will increase better outcomes for our students. So I wanted to share just a few of the programs of interest. This list continues to grow. On the next slide, the programs that we're looking at, not only just our curriculum, but some have additional features such as screenings that we can give kids that can help us identify areas of need to be able to really support strategically better than what we have in the past, just because of these resources. So the list continues to grow, but these are just a few of the programs of interest that have already committed to the pilot. So within the next slide just shows our general timeline. Right now, we're trying to generate the committee and those committee members that will really help support in pushing and moving this work, engaging with the adoption kickoff with our schools and teachers that have volunteered to really look at all of these curriculum platforms to be able to utilize them, give us feedback, and then between January and May do that, and then in May, let's make a recommendation so that we can move forward and hopefully have an approval and curriculum adoption and purchase in the process to be ready in the fall, because we realize that this is important. And so we wanted to engage. So we've been working with the curriculum department just to make sure that we're in alignment with how to ensure that we have feedback from our stakeholders, feedback from staff input, that we're just really going about this the right way so that there's buy-in, because this is too critical not to do that. Just an update on restorative practice. We just finished our Train the Trainer courses, so we have 17 of our own CPS trainers. And so one of my goals was when I looked at just practically the cost of bringing in trainers for restorative practice. We need to figure out a way to be self-sustaining as we need to continue to provide training to our teachers. So I'm excited that we have 17 that are eager and like ready to go today. They have a chat group and they're talking about how to implement and what their learning is, and just realizing that the importance of this. And even want to shout out my colleague here who did a restorative circle, even with adults. And so we want to see this not just something that happens with students, but that it's a way of work that we have at CPS. when there's things that we need to address, we can do it in a restorative manner. And so we have our core trainings that are coming up in January and March and in June, and then we have our admin and team trainings that will be coming up during the January season all the way through May, and our school differentiated coaching has already started with some of our schools and will continue on through the third and fourth quarter. And on the next slide, it shows the list of schools that are participating in the differentiated support. They receive a coach that is assigned to their school that will come to their school 8 times throughout the course of this year to provide support not only to their principal, but to their entire team in school to be able to help to move beyond just knowledge of restorative practice, but also implementation. And updates on our mental health grants and pilot strategies. So we have been recipients of 2 great, wonderful opportunities and grants. I think we have announced the Mental Health School Professional Grant, so just wanted to give an update on where we are with that, just remembering that that is to increase mental health professionals in the workforce and to have a level not only just to increase the numbers, but diversity. And so it ensures that 9 UC interns are placed in CPS high schools each year for a total of 45 interns throughout the duration of the 5-year commitment full grant period. This also has a career educational component. So this grant is projected to design and encourage high school students to go into pathways of mental health and to really help support them through looking at programs at UC and or Central State University. And so with this grant, it supports us with 2 additional staff members. One will be a project implementation manager and the other being a data assistant. And here's the timeline, kind of projected timeline. So in November, CPS and UC collaborated on the job description, what we want the manager position to entail. In December, to really start marketing for the job posting, it will be a UC position. So it will be on their posting with their team, but we are involved in the hiring process. We are involved in the interview process. In January and February, collectively, CPS and UC will review the applicants. We'll do the interviews in March with a proposal of a start date of April 1st, hopefully, for those 2 to start that position. And then the second grant with Children's Hospital, with that pilot. So looking at the alignment of the goals and guardrails of CPS and the goals of Children's, realizing that we want to reduce those barriers that prevent students from coming to school. And so this pilot is really looking at targeting neighborhoods in areas of need, as well as addressing trauma in a systemic way, and really aligning resources when there's trauma that occurs in the neighborhood or areas, that there's a liaison working with the district and in the school community that can let us know, hey, this trauma happened in this community. These students that are coming to school the next day are going to need these resources. Let's deploy some counselors. Let's, be able to equip the teachers to let them know, or really let the parents know that there are resources here at the school that can help support. Even though this event did not occur at school, we can align some support and resources to help. So we're really excited about this venture. Not only will it help support us with that, but it'll also continue to help support us with the work of quality improvement that really helps us in our design of how we get better, from our one plans that we have as a district to how we operate as a positive school culture. I think today we were looking at our key driver diagrams and our interventions that we have in place to make sure that there's still alignment, and are there changes that we need to make, because we are committed to the work, but we just need to be strategic and ask the right questions to continue to make improvement. So this pilot will support 2 positions, the Director of Strategic Planning and Family and Community Resource position. We have not finalized what the title of that role will be, but that will be forthcoming. So that is a position that will come out from this grant as well.
Was that it?
That is
All right,
it.
that's a lot. You are over there rocking it. Does any board member have any questions?
Don't have a question, as always. Just from the scope of being a mental health professional, I'm just so excited to see the comprehensive and uniform work that has been taken to really make sure that our students are getting that holistic approach to the academic experience. So really looking at, how to implement PBIS, how to make sure that there are supports in place so that they are successful. So I'm so happy to see that. And I'm also equally happy to see that you all are even having conversations about pathways. Because as a counselor, we know that there's significant challenge around the counseling profession in terms of having counselors stay in the schools. For several reasons, right? Especially around COVID, we've seen a decline. So the fact that we're seeing efforts to have students establish a pipeline or go through a pipeline so that they can become professionals is just amazing work. So thank you.
So thank you. I am slightly distracted, but I apologize to you for that. But I also keyed in on slide 25 where you talked about the new positions, and I think that's definitely something that the superintendent should share with our city partners, because there is a lot of conversation around what our students are doing outside of the building. And being able to connect, or at least publicly state that we have a plan and we're working on something, perhaps the city could divert some funds to support this as well. I did hear you say it was a grant, so that usually means there is an end date, or at least a potential one. But maybe there could be some potential for partnership opportunities here as well. But I do think that this is, I did hear you say, go back one more slide for me, Rob, that this is like up to now 45 positions, or one more. This is like now 45 interns for the full grant period, and that's definitely commendable to you and your team. And I say white paper in jest, but I mean it very seriously, in that we can capture some data to really start to begin to make some significant changes for our students, or at least inform the community at large, the city and the county, around what we're seeing for our students that we're able to impact slightly, that perhaps they can replicate, or at least just make aware decisions for. So this is really, I'm very, very interested in this, and maybe this is through Children's, but maybe we could get some other partners on as well to help sustain this. So please keep detailed data and inform us. You're always welcome to come back, as far as I'm concerned, and update us on the progress of these positions and then what they're finding, because that's how we make informed policy changes that will give you and your team some teeth to really impact changes for our students. So I remain impressed, but pleasantly surprised, not surprised, but pleasantly informed that you guys are doing great work. So thank you. And I want to invite the superintendent to share this proudly at our next meeting.
Yeah, also just want to comment how super proud we are of the work of Director House and this particular department. We know that for many in our community, the thought, the concept, the conversation around mental health has been taboo for many years, to one, accept it, and then to really address it. So super excited to see what will happen here, in particular with people of color, being able to relate to people of color. And then on the second grant coming from Children's Hospital, super excited that they are still willing and interested in supporting our work around collecting the data and demonstrating the data and the drivers that really help us get to where we want to be with our outcomes. But then secondly, really thinking about having someone in place who can make that agency, school, community connection for us. We talked about oftentimes young people are really in crisis, and it may be 11 p.m. at night, and we're not aware, and yet they still show up for school at 7:30 in the morning. And so we have someone who can help us make all of these connections with young people. Certainly, we should be able to assist them then in doing better, learning, reading, writing, and arithmetic. So very proud of her work.
Thank you. Yes.
I do know we have to transition, but one quick question. So while this is very comprehensive in terms of just providing services and supports to our students, and on paper it does look really great, what do you see in terms of the lift so that we can fully ensure that we're implementing this effectively? And also, what supports do you need, or you and your team need from us as a board or as a community to help continue the awareness and the advocacy of these efforts?
So I think one of the things that we mentioned in our planning meeting, and I would be remiss if I said this was just my department. The Community Family Engagement Director of Sierra Badgett, he's involved. College and Career, they've been involved with the mental health grant. There are other departments, Student Services, they are involved in this work as well, which is great. That shows that our district is not just an ownership of one department, that we're all invested in this work and look at it from the lens of how we serve. But to answer your question, one of the things that I requested is that we continue to look for better ways to improve of our data reporting and/or reports, the better that we can get with that, what that looks like to make sure that the data is useful, even if it's data that comes from our community, that we get maybe from the police or maybe from the county. How do we use that and create a dashboard that kind of intersects with what we know about kids to be able to say, where is the need at? So to be able to look for opportunities of that and just continuous communication and support and advocacy. We know that and some of it is kind of patience and time. Some of it's just going to take time, and we know that we have communities of great need, and so we're doing our best at getting better. And so, at the end of the day, I would love to say the only thing we'll ask is for fiscal resources, but I know that it might be more than that. But I think the continuous advocacy of partners or those in the community that not just want to talk about what CPS should be doing, but could also have a level of influence of how they can partner with us in the work is really helpful and supportive of this.
Sorry, one final, it just came to my mind. You talked about the SEL curriculum. Is the anticipation for this curriculum to be woven throughout the general courses that students take, or will there be a set aside class to focus on SEL? Speak a little bit about that curriculum.
So I think that we're looking at it from all avenues. Right now, primarily, a lot of social workers provide that curriculum into the school setting, but only one person can do so much and to reach so many kids. So the curriculums that we're looking at could be designed that classroom teachers can. There are some schools that have it set up like a special class, and so one teacher kind of teaches that to all students or to ensure that they have all access. But I think we want to look at something that provides us with flexibility, because depending on different programmings and offerings at each school, they might have different needs of what's needed. So that is something that we're leaving kind of open, and we're hoping to receive feedback from different schools on what works best.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. House. I know, you're gonna get more questions and I have more questions, but in the best interest of time, I wanna make sure that we can get to Mr. Bell, because the board members have to leave for 4:30 exec session. So, Mr. Bell, you are up in school safety lockdown for semester information.
Okay, hello, everyone. I didn't know I was going to follow such a good person.
Can you bring your mic a little
You gotta move
closer?
your mic too.
Bring your mic closer. It can move.
Oh,
Bring it.
move my mic?
Yes.
How's that? Is that better? Thank you, I appreciate that. So just in a follow-up, in terms of in-school safety, the report that I'm getting is that students are pretty confident in their schools. We do visits, and in those visits, we interview 2 students just at random to ask them how they feel about school safety. We've gotten a lot of support in terms of their feeling about school, where they can report something and they feel safe and secure in the building. In terms of lockdowns, our compliance rate has been pretty strong. We do have people that report it differently, and that's something that we are working on. In addition to the lockdowns, with that, we also shared our Safe Schools training with the Cincinnati Police Department to make sure that everybody's on the same page. There was some questions about what we were doing and what the police department were being trained on. I think we're working on that now so that we can all make sure that we're in compliance with not only what the police expect, but also what's best for our students. And that's really it in the sake of time.
Well, that was actually pretty fast around. I do have a couple questions, but Vice President Weinberg, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions.
Board Member Mapp? Well, I have a question. I'm going to leave this with you, and then I'm going to invite you back along with Mr. Burkhart, your buddy, so you two get to come back to the next health and safety meeting. But someone asked me, a parent asked me, do we do any like secret, they said, secret security shoppers in our buildings to see if the buildings are like secure, if our security, yeah, like, well, not a student, but just like undercover, like, dun, 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 I made it to this door, it wasn't locked. Like, do we do anything like that to double check our security?
Okay, so if it's a secret, I can't talk about it?
Well, that's true, But maybe we do
But
that.
But I will tell you that, that there are some concerns that are reported that will remain confidential. And when we do get that information, then we immediately act upon it.
Okay,
And that's part of the survey about if a student feels comfortable and if they can identify a security member. And do they feel comfortable reporting something to them? So there's information that's come forth because a student or someone else has shared it.
do we survey our students? Like, do they feel comfortable, like a one or two question? We do survey them.
We do survey them, yes.
Okay, great. All right. Well, then the public has an answer to the question, the little secret security shopper or whatever they call it. Does any other board member have any questions? I know we're kind of crunched for time, but anything that you'd like to see for the next meeting that we can get the administration working on? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, absolutely. So I have received some inquiries and wanting to get a menstrual product update and the grant update that we received from last year in terms of the replacement of the products and the dispensers. So if we could get an update on that, and then I would love to have a Yonderback update. I want to hear how is it going in our schools, what are some of the pros and cons, what are they finding? I know principals have reported that kids are actually talking to each other socially and connecting, just giving us an update. And also maybe an update of, are we losing any of the pouches? Are they, returning to the schools? Things like that. Thank you.
That's it. All right. Well, it has been my pleasure to chair this committee for the year of 2024. Not exactly sure who is going to be chairing next year. If it is myself, I welcome you back. If it's not, then thank you. It has been my pleasure. For the public, if you do have any questions around health and safety, please give us an email. You can email our awesome admin, Ms. Phyllis Davis or Ms. Pat Bruckner. Thanks again, and have a